I don't scare easily. I've worked night shifts for years, walked through alleys most people would avoid, and shrugged off the things that make other people quicken their steps. But this still claws at me every time I close my eyes. Back then, I was working the late shift at a greasy diner downtown. By the time I clocked out, it was usually midnight or later. The streets were almost always empty, just buzzing streetlights and the occasional wind carrying a newspaper down the block. My car was about 4 blocks away, parked in the same spot every night. It wasn't the best neighborhood, but I told myself routine meant safety. That night started like any other. I was tired, apron balled up under my arm, still smelling like fryer oil. My footsteps echoed sharp against the concrete, and I remember thinking how loud they sounded. Too loud for such a dead street. That's when I saw him. At the far corner, under one of those tall, flickering streetlights, a man was standing. Not leaning, not pacing, just standing. Perfectly still. He had on a long, dark coat that almost brushed the ground. The light above him buzzed and wavered, making his outline ripple like he wasn't entirely solid. I slowed my pace without meaning to. At first, I thought he was just waiting for someone, but then I realized he wasn't moving. At all. He didn't shuffle, didn't check a phone, didn't even shift his weight. It was like someone had carved him out of the shadows and planted him there. The light above him flickered, stuttering in and out, and each time it blinked, my stomach dropped. Because when it came back on, it felt like he had turned slightly. Just a fraction. By the third flicker, he wasn't facing away anymore. He was turned completely toward me. I froze. The pool of light should have revealed his face, but it didn't. It was as if the shadow under the lamp had thickened, swallowing everything above his shoulders. No face. Just void. I forced myself to keep walking, my heart hammering so loud it drowned out the city around me. Every instinct screamed not to look back, but I did. I had to. And when I did, the streetlight was empty. No footsteps, no rustle of a coat, no sign anyone had ever been there. I told myself I was imagining it. I was exhausted, maybe even nodding off while walking. But the next night, he was there again. Not under the same streetlight this time. Closer. 2 blocks from my car. He stood in the same stiff pose, long coat draped over him like a shroud. Again, the light above him flickered, and again, I felt the world twist when it blinked back on. He was angled toward me this time, already watching, as if he had been waiting. I didn't walk past him that night. I turned around and cut down a different street, practically running the long way to my car. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before I got the door open. I didn't sleep when I got home. Every creak of the apartment made me sit up straight. Every passing car outside sent shadows crawling across my walls. And then came the third night. This time he was standing directly under the light above my car. Still, silent, waiting. I didn't even try to approach. I left the car where it was, sprinted back to my apartment, and locked every bolt and chain I had. The next morning I went back. Broad daylight. The car was untouched. No footprints, no sign of anyone standing there. I've moved since then, across the state. But sometimes, late at night when I walk home, I catch myself staring at the corners under the streetlights. My chest tightens every time one flickers, because I know it's only a matter of time before I see him again. I grew up in a small 2-story house with a half-finished basement. My parents used it mostly for storage, boxes stacked against the walls, old furniture draped in sheets, that kind of thing. I hated going down there as a kid. The air always felt damp, and the single window near the ceiling barely let in any light. Even during the day, it always felt like night down there. When I got older, I used the basement as my room. I didn't mind at first. It gave me privacy, space. I could play music late, stay up all night online, and nobody cared. But I always kept the blinds over that one little window pulled shut. I didn't like the idea of someone being able to look in at me, even though the window was half buried underground. The first time it happened, I was sitting at my desk, headphones on, scrolling mindlessly. Out of nowhere, I got this feeling. You know that prickling on the back of your neck? Like someone's watching you? I turned, and the blinds over the window, they were swaying. Not from a draft, but like someone had brushed against them from the outside. I froze, staring, my pulse hammering in my ears. The basement was silent except for the soft clink of the blinds tapping against the glass. I told myself it was nothing. A breeze, maybe. But my gut twisted. There was no breeze. That window barely opened, and the outside was a wall of dirt and grass. Over the next few weeks, it happened again. The blinds would shift, or I'd catch a faint shadow moving past the slats. Once, I thought I saw fingers curl over the sill. Pale, thin fingers that vanished the moment I blinked. I didn't tell my parents. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I think someone's crouching outside the half-buried basement window at night? They'd laugh, tell me it was in my head. And maybe it was. But every night I started keeping my light off, just sitting there in the dark, listening, waiting. One night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound, soft tapping on the glass, like knuckles, slow, deliberate. I couldn't move. I just lay there, staring at that window across the room. The blinds were trembling, and then, this is what makes my stomach twist even now, I heard a whisper. Low, muffled, but clear enough to know it wasn't the house creaking. It said my name. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I didn't even close my eyes. I just sat there, hugging my knees, staring at those blinds until the first light of morning crept in through the cracks. Eventually, I moved out. I told myself I'd leave that basement behind, but sometimes, when I stay at my parents' place for the holidays, I still end up in that room. And the last time I was there, just a few months ago, I swear I heard the blinds shift again. Just once. Like something brushing past. Careful. Patient. And here's the thing I can't shake. The question that keeps gnawing at me. If the window is half buried underground, and there's barely enough room for dirt and grass outside it, then what the hell was I hearing? I moved into my first real apartment about 4 years ago. It was in one of those older neighborhoods, the kind with cracked sidewalks and big sagging trees that seemed too heavy for their roots. My unit was small but cheap, and right across the street from me was this old 2-story house. It looked abandoned. The paint was peeling, windows boarded up, the yard overgrown with knee-high weeds. The kind of house kids dared each other to run up to on Halloween. At first, I didn't pay it much attention. I worked long hours, came home tired, and honestly, the last thing I cared about was some creepy house across the street. But then, about a week after moving in, I noticed something strange. The upstairs window, the one not boarded up. Sometimes, late at night, there would be light coming from it. Not bright, just this faint flickering glow, like someone walking past with a candle. I told myself it was probably squatters, or maybe a neighbor's reflection. But the longer I lived there, the more I realized it wasn't either of those. The light never spread to the walls. It stayed centered, always in that same spot, as if someone was standing just out of sight, holding it in their hands. I started watching that house every night, from my window. Sometimes I'd swear I saw movement behind the glass, just a shadow leaning forward, then back, like whoever it was knew I was staring. I'll admit, part of me got obsessed. I even looked up property records. Nobody had lived there in over 20 years. The city listed it as condemned. So who the hell was holding a light in that window? One night, I got bold. Maybe stupid bold. I set up a chair by my window, lights off, and just watched. Hours passed. Nothing. Around 2 a.m., I started nodding off when suddenly, it was there. The glow. Flickering, steady, then gone. My skin prickled. And then I realized something that made my stomach turn. It wasn't just light. It was moving. Slowly. Like it was being carried. Down the hallway. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. Sometimes I'd hear noises from across the street. Not loud, just this low, dragging scrape like furniture being pulled across a floor. Other times I'd wake up in the middle of the night certain that I'd heard knocking. Not at my door, but faint, across the street, echoing through the quiet neighborhood. One night, I made the mistake of opening my blinds at 3 a.m. The glow was there again, but this time it wasn't in the window. It was outside the house, standing at the edge of the yard. Too far to make out details, but close enough to see the faint outline of a figure holding something dim and orange. It stood there for maybe 5 minutes, not moving, not walking closer, just standing, angled slightly toward my building. I closed the blinds and sat in the dark, heart pounding so hard I thought it might shake my chest open. I didn't move until sunrise. Eventually, I started avoiding looking out the window altogether. But here's the thing. Even when I stopped watching, I could feel it. That pressure, that certainty that if I just opened the blinds, I'd see the glow waiting. I moved out after a year, told myself it was a fresh start. New job, new apartment, far away from that house. But the memory stuck with me. And last week, I was driving home late at night. Different city, different neighborhood. I stopped at a red light, glanced to my right, and I swear on everything I love, there it was. An old, rotting house, boarded up windows, and in the second story, through the one open pane, a faint, flickering glow.